See, maybe put it this way. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Babu Sujudil Qur'ani. The chapter of the sajjas in the Quran. According to Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullah, there are 14 sajjas in the Quran. Whether you read it intentionally or you listen to it intentionally, whether you read it by mistake or you listen to it by mistake, in all situations, sajda sehu is sajda tilawat is wajib, right? And the other imam, they say it's not wajib, but rather it is sunnah. So how do you do sajda tilawat where you just say takbir and you go? You can go from a standing or a sitting position. Better from a standing position. You go into sajda, say tasbih, and then say takbir, and you come up. The same place must be clean. You must be in the state of wuzu. That is for that. You don't. The sajda is سجد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالنجم وسجد معه المسلمون والمشركون والجن والإنس رواه البخاري. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said Nabi Akram made sajda in Surah Najm, and the Muslimin and the Mushrikeen and the Jinnat and the Insan made sajda with him. So the Mushrikeen, why did they make sajda here? Because the names of Lat and Uzza comes in this year. So they thought Nabi Akram is praising, or just out of that, they made sajda. That's one. Or the other is when Nabi Kareem Sallallahu recited the ayats of that, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى وَلَكُمُ الذَّكَرُ وَلَهُ الْأُنثَى. Then Shaitan, he was reciting in the haram, then Shaitan projected the voice and they said, تِلْكَ الْغَرَانِيقُ الْأُولَى وَإِنَّ شَفَاعَتَهُنَّ لَتُرْجَى. These are the pious of before, and indeed their intercession is hope. So Shaitan made this sound here in the haram. And the mushrikeen thought that Nabi Karim Sallallahu was praising their idols and therefore they also fell into sajda. Right. When Nabi Hurairah radiallahu anhu qala sajadna ma'an Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam fi idha as-sama'u inshaqqat wa iqra' bismi rabbika rawahu Muslim. Nabi Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said Nabi made sajda with Nabi Karim Sallallahu in idha as-sama'u inshaqqat and iqra' bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. This hadith here is a proof against Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. He says there are no sajda tilawat in the whole all the mufassalat. In other words, right from Surah Al-Hujurat right till the end, there are no sajda tilawat. وابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ السجدة ونحن عنده فيسجد ونسجد معه فنزدحم حتى ما يجد أحدنا لجبهته موضعا يسجد عليه متفق عليه. Therefore, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said Nabi Akram would recite the sajda and we were by him. Then he would make sajda and we would make sajda with him. And there would be such a crowd until one of us would not find for his forehead a place in which he could make sajda on. So which means here, what this hadith is showing here, that there were so many of them, that not all of them could make the sajda, they had to wait a little bit and some had to make it afterwards. So this hadith here, what does it also show you? It shows you that sajda tilawat is wajib as Ahnaf says. Because if it was not wajib, then they wouldn't have taken such an effort to all make the sajda. But everybody was trying to get their sajdas done. Right. And from here also we understand is that when everybody there's a group of people sitting and one person reciting and the others are listening, and then the sajda ayat is recited, then you can't do it like how here now. The person who recite it, he makes the sajda, the others make the sajda sort of behind him, and and then that's how they will fulfill the sajda. So although this is following suratan, but in hakikatan it is not following, because you're not following him, but outwardly it looks like you're following him. You understand? Right. When Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu qala, قرأت على رسول الله ثم النجم فلم يسجد فيها متفق عليه. Nabi Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu said, I recited upon Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam Surah Najm. Then he didn't make sajda in it. Imam Shafi rahmatullahi, what he says is that Nabi Karim Sam not making sajda in Surah Najm was to show permissibility of not making sajda. In other words, that shows the sajda is not wajib. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi says, because Surah Najm is in the Mufassalat, right? Therefore, therefore Nabi Karim so they didn't make sajda. Imam Boniva rahmatullah alayhi, he's got lots of answers for this here. He says that it doesn't mean that Nabi Akram didn't make sajda. That's why sajda tilawat is not wajib. It is possible that Nabi Akram didn't have wuzu at the time, or the time was a makruh time, or he left out the sajda so the people will know that the sajda tilawat is not faraz, or it is not wajib al-fawr. In other words, it's not wajib immediately. If it's a bit difficult, you can recite it at a later stage, make the sajda at a later stage. So it's possible that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made the sajda at the later stage. And because of the hadith, it passed already that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu and all of them made sajda in Surah Najm. Right. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu qala, سجدة صاد ليس من عزائم السجود وقد رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يسجد فيها. وفي رواية قال مجاهد قلت لابن عباس أسجد في صاد فقرأ ومن ذريته داود سليمان حتى أتى بهداه مقتديه فقال نبيكم صلى الله عليه وسلم ممن أمر أن يقتدي بهم رواه البخاري. Then Ibn Abbas said the sajda of Surah Sad is not from the emphasized sujood, and I saw Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam making sajda in it. Right, so yeah, Ibn Abbas was saying it's not from the emphasized sujood, but he said I saw Nabi Karim making sajda in it. In one riwayat, Mujahid says, I said to Ibn Abbas, must I make sajda in Surah Sad? So he recited, and وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِهِ دَاوُدَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ, and from his progeny was Dawood and Sulaiman, until he came to فَبِهُدَاهُ مُقْتَدِي, then with their guidance follow. Right. So then he says, so he read those ayats there. Right. So then he said that your Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has been commanded to follow them. Right. So what's he saying here? Right. Firstly, so the Ahnaf, what we say is that yes, this sajda or sword is not a faraz. Rather, it is the wajibats of tilawat. Tilawat, right? And the ulama say that in Surah Sad, Nabi Karim made sajda following as a Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, where he made sajda on the acceptance of his tawbah. So Nabi Karim also made sajda. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu is saying now in response to the question from Mujahid that Nabi Karim was commanded to follow the Dawood alayhi salam and also make sajda. Then to a greater extent, we as the ummah, we should also be making sajda. Right. When Abd ibn al-As radiallahu anhu أقرأ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم 15 سجدة في القرآن منها 3 في المفصل وفي سورة الحج سجدتين رواه أبو داود ابن ماجه. And Umar ibn al-As radiallahu anhu said that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught me, right? Taught 15 sajdas in the Quran. From it was 3 in the Mufassalat, right? And in Surah Hajj, he said there was 2. Abu Dawud and Ibn Majah. Then they go through here and then they explain all these, the 15 places, right? So now, when we look at all these 14, actually the 15 places now, there's ikhtilaf among Zaimah into how many sajdas there are, right? Imam Ahmad rahmatullah, according because he follows this hadith here, so he says there are 15 sujuds in the Quran, right? Imam Shafi rahmatullah, he said there are 14. Uh, he says that in Surah Hajj there are two, and in Surah Sad they say there's no sajda. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, according to him, the sajjas are 11 because according to him, the ones in Mufassalat, right? They are not. He doesn't. He said there's no sajdas in the Mufassalat, right? So that is three. You take the three away, then you get, and you take away the Surah Sad one, right? And then you get Surah Najm, Surah Inshiqaq, and Surah Iqra, right? So, and this was also the Qadim Qawl, the initial Qawl of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi. Imam Bani rahmatullah, he also says that there are 14 sajdas, but in Surah Hajj, where they all saying there's two sajdas, he said there's only one. And he said the second sajda, that sajda was a salati sajda. Right. Ulama says that this hadith of Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu says yeah, 15 sajdas is da'if and you cannot take it, and some of the narrators are majhul and unknown. The ulama are unanimous that when a person recites salah, faraz or nafil, if he comes to a ayat sajda, then he should make the sajda. And the sajda of a salah cannot be fulfilled after the salah. And when you make the sajda of a faraz salah, then according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, it's best to just recite Subhana Rabbiyal A'la in it. But if you're making the sajdas of a nafil salah, or you're making the sajdas outside salah, then you, besides the tasbih, you can also read other tasbih. Sajada wajhi has another tasbih. Sajada wajhi lilladhi khalaqahu wa sawwarahu wa shaqqa sam'ahu wa basarahu bihawli wa quwwati wa tabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqin. That hadith will also come explaining the sajda later. Right. Right. Then we have the masla of if you end your kirat on a sajda ayat, as you recite the sajda ayat and up to 3 ayats after that, right? Then, and you go into ruku, then according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, you can make intention of your sajda ayat in the ruku. You make intention, then it's done with your ruku. And if you didn't make intention, it automatically becomes done with your sajda. If you're leading the people, then it's better not to make intention in ruku because people don't know that you're making intention in ruku. So therefore, you just leave it and everybody's sajda will become fulfilled with the sajda of salat. Right, that's according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi. Okay, leave it till